read our,
I'm recording now.
thank you, Seth. I'm going to do our statement of commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Scituate Waterways Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask that all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is a disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Thank you. With everything there, since we can't make any votes, chairman's report, really, I just want to thank everybody, especially the Harbor Master Feasibility Group that has put a lot of time and effort. I appreciate Chris coming down today to give us a little update from his end on what's been happening. We've got a lot going on around town. As everybody probably knows, a town meeting, thanks with one of our other subcommittees, the bylaw for the right to fish was approved without any challenges. Tonight, I got to be out of here by about 7:20. So Brian will finish up the meeting. We're getting our approval hopefully tonight from the select board so that we can have our first event down the harbor in a while, our opening of the harbor event, which everybody knows is happening on the first Friday of June. We've got all the marketing stuff ready to go once hopefully the select board says all is well. So it's looking like it's going to be a great event. It's already being talked around the town. So really looking forward to that. We've got a lot of other interesting things that are happening around the waterways as we're getting ready to open up. And we've got some numbers that we'll get into a little bit later on in our agenda on how shoulder season spring 2025 has worked out. With that, if anybody has any questions before, we'll go right to item number 7, Harbor Master Feasibility Study with Christopher Doctor. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back.
Glad to be back. So this is a similar presentation that I made to the subcommittee previously. So some of you may have seen some of it, could have been updated with some comments from that meeting. So I'll just walk through this. So for those of you who didn't see the previous presentation, this basically what I'm going to do is walk through the existing conditions that the civil engineer did to determine some of the parameters that we have to work with. We'll walk through the design of the building, and then we'll look at some landscape suggestions for the placement of the building. So some of the stuff that our civil engineer, niche engineering did was looking at existing utilities to see what was on site. Pretty clear site, certainly between the existing Coast Guard and existing Harbor Master facility. We have access to water, sewer, and electric. Obviously, there are buildings there now that are accommodated by those things. The next thing we looked at some extent was the flood maps. And so these are three FEMA flood maps that are for 2030, 2050, and 2070. So you can see the flood actually rises. So what we had to decide which elevation to choose, right, just to start, and then we can decide what to do going forward. So we chose 2030 as a starting point. And so based on that, we developed some parameters for which to design the building. One of the other exercises that Niche did as well is to do a first pass at what the local and state and federal permitting that would be required for this project. And I won't go into that in any detail yet, but basically we have an understanding of between building codes, Mass EPA and the federal EPA regulations that will need to be submitting for permitting for. The next thing that we did together as a team is we looked at the flood elevation and the recommendations. So we're at elevation 15, I think, is the starting point. And so by the time we work up through the underside of structure and utility enclosures, basically we determined if we're starting at elevation 10, for a ramp or grade around the building. Our first floor elevation is elevation 20, which is 10 feet up in the air from the existing grade. So that's where we're starting from.
So 10 is the grade today.
10, elevation 10 is the grade. The building is actually at elevation 11.
Yeah.
Elevation 10, and then it drops to elevation 9 pretty quickly from that. So we talked with the group doing the larger parking lot project, and it sounded like it would be okay to regrade some of that to get to the 10. Because every foot of elevation is 12 feet of ramp. So we're trying to minimize that. Because one of the other things too, the idea was to raise the building up so we can get as much water under it as possible. But if we had to have some footprint that was still on the ground, we were making up 2 buildings worth, right? So we're actually providing more access for water on the site. So if we raise the grade, put in a basement or lower level, those things are okay. We're still actually providing more place for the water to go when it does flood. So this is a quick diagram that I did for a couple things, right? So here's existing grade elevation 10. 10 feet up is elevation 20, first floor. Then what I did is, okay, we have a 40-foot building height. So if I take the platform level, the first level, and the second level, and I go 10 and 12, which is a roof pitch that we like, right? And I do that, it gives us a width, which is 24 feet. So the modules of the building at that elevation are 24 feet wide to get that pitch. And then we go from there. We have about 2 feet for structure and utilities below the first floor. And so the elevation 18, which is 8 feet up, is the underside of all that's required by FEMA. Again, this is all predicated on a 10-foot existing elevation. So really, this diagram is really to determine, what are the components that we're working with the scale. So then we have to do this exercise. It's okay, design precedent. So typically for a building like this on the water, especially when you have a long, narrow building, it tends to be a long gabled building with cross gables. You can see them here and here, and then basically a series of articulated volumes that are simple gables. Yeah, that's sort of the precedent that we're using for this design. So this was the sketch. I think someone had thought it looked like it was broken down last time, but it's a sketch. It's an artist's sketch. Huh? So then what I did is I took that module, that 24-foot module, which is this width. And if we go say a 2x3 footprint, so 24 by 36 feet, that's sort of a general model, 2 stories high, 10 and 12 slope. We extended for the length of the site. We had some cross gables to give it some articulation. In this case, we have 2 because if we're thinking about Harbor Master and Coast Guard, they would each be represented by a cross gable. And then we can articulate them even further if we want, create a little more interest. Then we raised it up 10 feet. We put a basement in at 1 level, or lower, first floor really at 1 level for storage. We had a platform for access, and then this was a first pass at a sketch of what that might look like. With basically a series of these simple gables articulated on the platform at 10 feet high. So let's look at the floor plans. So here, this is the first floor. Basically, what we've done is we have the Coast Guard. There are 3 buildings essentially, but they're all connected by roof. So there's the Coast Guard, the public, which is the restrooms and the transient boaters, and then the Harbor Master. So those are the 3 elements. And so we'll start here in the Harbor Master. So the idea is you come up this ramp, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But you come up this ramp, which is facing the parking lot side, where presumably most of the public will be coming. And you get up to the main level. And so there's basically a big area for people to hang out, right? So the access to the restrooms, viewing for events, but then also direct access to the harbor master and the lobby. So we have a lobby and a receptionist. And then off of that, we have the conference room. And then we have another office in the other corner, which has
The communication center.
the communications center, which has the view of the harbor, the north and the east. And then we also have some storage in the back, and then a second means of egress, which has direct access to a stair down to the harbor, so that if the staff are coming in, they can come in, get what they need, the wetsuits, whatever that they need to get to go out for rescue or whatever, training. And that's at that end. So that can be separated from whatever's going on in the public. And with a restroom on the first floor for that use. That's the first floor of that. We'll talk about the second floor in a second. This is the way up to the second floor. And then over here, we have the transient boater facility. So we have 2 bathrooms, each with a shower. And then a laundry room, and then a janitor's closet off of that. Then over here for the public restrooms, we have 4 stalls each for the men and the women, and then a family restroom, all accessible. And the entrance to these restrooms are undercover as well. And then for the Coast Guard, this is based on their model, but also I think the fire station was another model we looked at.
In Humrock,
Yes.
building in Humrock.
Yeah, so we looked at that as a model for reducing the scale of the existing Coast Guard building. But basically, undercover, you come in, there's an office with a vault. And in this case, to keep it compact, we combine the kitchen, living, and dining. And then have a laundry on the first floor with some storage and a restroom on that lower level. And then the access to the upstairs there. And then you can see where the boat is there in the plan, that's access to the storage underneath. Any questions on this? Yeah,
The mechanicals in the lower level,
no,
okay,
everything has to be above
That's what I thought.
that.
are they on the first? Or are they?
So they'll actually be in the attic.
Okay.
Of the buildings. There's plenty of attic space in these.
Just thinking condensers, AC condensers get outside.
Yeah, so that's what we did in Plymouth. We put most of the stuff in the attic and then hung the condensing units on the outside of the building. And then covered them with windscreens so you can see the big fan. I don't know if you've seen them on the back, but we sort of did them symmetrically. So they look like they're part of the building rather than an add-on.
So it's open in between the buildings, right?
It's open between, yep.
Yeah.
But it's
But there is a roof.
covered by a roof.
Oh, it is covered by.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll see that in
Yeah,
a minute.
okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question was, so no elevator requirement for that? for
If it's staff only, then it doesn't require an elevator and the scale, but
Okay, so staff only, you don't need that.
correct. And it's small enough, it only needs 1 means of egress.
And the ramps will provide access to the building itself.
Yeah, the entire
Yeah.
facility is accessible.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that upper floor.
It's just that.
Question. The laundry, I don't use the Scituate town pump, but a lot of people do. Is there any way to distinguish voters' use versus town's use? Because it's clean and new and people I'm sure will walk across the parking lot to use that laundry.
The laundry is probably, that's just a room for like the future. It's like an office or a storage room. We're not gonna put laundromat in there because there's a laundromat in Cole Parkway. We don't want to be in competition with
Right.
people.
Yeah, okay, that was my question.
It's sort of future planning.
Yeah, like in Newburyport, though, they actually have in the area that you have to do key code again for the voters.
Yeah.
Right? They had just one washer and dryer there for Marina and forward.
We're just not looking to be in competition, rapid.
Yeah. But it's one washer and dryer, it's not.
Yeah, and Plymouth did the same thing.
Will, is each building separated, like will each building have its own AC furnace or heating, or will the harbor master side and then. the
We're
public
assuming
side.
it's all split units, electric.
Mini split units.
Mini
Put for heat in.
Yeah.
And on the floor plan, I don't know how to. So is there any way you can have the communication center and the receptionist? Kind of like closer together, so it could be staffed by, in a quiet time, by one person versus having to have multiple people.
Well, we wouldn't have. Ellen, the receptionist would be like Ellen. And should be probably in that communication center during the winter time. And then there'd be like there'd be, doors would be open. And people come in, and, Mike and I might be in our offices and they just, will ring a bell or call us or. We don't expect to have like a full-time receptionist, full-time person in communication center. Mike Pierce may be down there. I might be down there if he's not there.
Yeah,
We still plan on having 3 people.
yeah, I just think if we, first of all, having spent a lot of time in the, current building a long time ago. And where if you was kind of standing watcher on, at the communication center, where, as it were, you were looking at a parking lot, and then to your back, behind a wall was the harbor. So that wasn't ideal, and I just see this, so I didn't know if there's some way you could spin it around. And put maybe the back of the reception area up to the communication center and have it more dual use. It would seem to me it would make better sense of use of staffing when it's in quiet times. I could see if it's a Saturday, Sunday, weekends, a holiday, stuff like that you want, but you could just move some things around and I think make it work better long-term for minimizing staff.
With the scheme before this had the reception and the office in the same room.
I
Because
see.
Marshfield does that.
I see a good reason to keep it separate, especially if you're working, have phones and you have phones ringing, you're talking on the radio and trying to run a case or something like that, you want to shut it off from reception, but I just think it'd be nice to have it close by and versus like around the corner, just so one person, when it was, like I said, when it's quiet, one person can do both and move reception, so they have a view of the harbor too. Having a conference room also, it's gonna be used minimal use, where you could. It just seems to me you could set it up a little differently so that they were close together. That would be my only comment.
Conference room is that meeting room, the public wanted, when we had these meetings, they were looking for an additional place to have conferences. Also, if there was a SAR case going on, that would be used, that conference room would be used for that as well. If this is all the information we received from the public.
Okay, well, wasn't able to attend those, so I would say, for staffing reasons, put the reception and the communication center closer together so you can just streamline your staffing. Yeah,
Question?
This isn't something that's 5 years. This is what's the life of the building? 30 years on the building, so. I just think it's something to look at and.
I think you make a good point, Brian. Why is the conference room taking prime space overlooking the harbor? Put that in the back and what you're saying is move the lobby forward and the reception, correct?
Yeah, there's all,
But
you
it
could
just
spin it 15 different ways and
Right.
I think make it work. And the other thing is, why do you have a storage room, 2 storage rooms overlooking the harbor? But
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's very important that if they get a call from a patron coming in and they need help finding the slip they're coming into as a transient, it's kind of critical that they can look out the window and say, oh, you're the sailboat that's, hovering, right, see them. So wherever the comm room is should have direct view.
Yeah.
of
It
what's
does.
happening.
It's right here.
That's
Oh,
why
that
we-
is the comm room.
that's
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
comm room.
Yeah.
yeah, my.
That's
point
why
was
we-
to put
that's
reception
why we
close
put
to
it
the
there.
harbor.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if it's because I'm remote, but I can't even see the conference room. Is there a way? In the meeting room, can you see the conference room?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have visibility. Okay.
He would have to share his screen.
Well, can you guys see you can see a floor plan, right, Dave?
Yeah, it stops at the lobby. You don't see it. I see the word CO. I assume that's conference room to the right of it, but I can't see it.
It's Chris's screen on mine.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I don't think anyone remote probably can see it either, but okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Sent out the floor plan, so you should be able to open those and look at it.
Okay.
The only other comment that I think would be, and this was if you had I don't know, a small deck or a window, you could, off of the comm center, you could step out onto with binoculars and look out in the harbor, and also keep, have a door open, listen to what's going on. That would be, you don't want to be, when it's quiet, you don't want to be sitting in a room with the windows closed and not have any, what am I trying to say? Any connection to the outdoors.
Situational awareness.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you can certainly open the windows.
Okay, well, but it'd be nice to be able to have a small deck you can step out, like a wing, a bridge wing or something like that. If it was mine, that's what I'd do.
Okay.
But
So I noticed that, again, the east side facing the harbor, between the comms and the conference room, it looks like you've got two storage closets. And then behind those, that's a bathroom.
Right.
And then that next wall, is that a full wall or is that like a half wall for people?
Where, here?
Yes,
That's a full wall,
okay.
so that this is private.
Yeah, I'm just I'm with the guys where having the ability to see more of the harbor from that side instead of a closet space, bathroom to me is a little bit hard. I would rather have the ability for people coming in to have the ability to be able to see the harbor. That was my only thought.
Anybody else? Okay. I'm gonna move to the second floor. We're here on the second floor from the harbor master. You come up from that vestibule in the back, you come up the stairs and there's a break room. This is very similar to Marshfield if you've been there. There's a break room, there's a hallway, there's a shower and two bathrooms, a harbor master office and a secondary office, and the lockers in the hall. Pretty straightforward. Yeah. And then while I'm here, and then for the Coast Guard, again, from downstairs, you go up the stairs. There's a hallway with lockers at the end, two bathrooms with showers, and then with two bedrooms, with two bunk rooms, closets on the other side. Pretty straightforward. Any questions on that? If there is a no.
So 3 offices, a reception area, a lobby area, and a conference room.
Are you on the first floor?
Not even all up in the harbor master building. So
On the first
total, so two offices.
Oh,
2 offices up
and a
top,
break room.
one office downstairs, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
A reception, a conference room, and the lobby.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of space for 3 people.
Now, so here's what it would look like. These are the elevations. So this is the elevation facing the parking lot. You can see here the openings between the buildings, the opening into the restrooms, and then the ramp here in the front. And we like to do the ramp. We're not afraid of the ramp. I know a lot of people were saying we should hide the ramp, put it somewhere else, but we like to put the ramp in because it adds to the character of what's going on with that elevated deck. And then this is the north side. And again, at the deck, you can see here that the access for the storage below the Coast Guard building, portion of the building. And the gable, so you can see that from that section diagram, how that starts to play out there. So Currently, the proposed materials are standing seam metal roof. Cottage style double hung windows, that way the meeting rail is a little bit higher, so you can see under it, you get a better view, especially if you go down. And then cedar shingles, and then barn door here, and then stainless steel guardrails and railings with a cable system. And then we have these breakaway panels between the timber piles on the lower level, so they can break away if there's a flood that comes through.
Is the barn, the doors to get under, is that access the hole underneath the structure? Is there a certain part that
Just the footprint of the Coast Guard building.
is that heated or is that?
No.
It's just secure.
Can any of that be used for parking?
Underneath. Well, the problem is the spacing of the piles would have to be larger.
So
So
underneath would probably be like a crushed stone or a stone type
it would be a crushed
base.
stone, yeah.
Mhm.
Plus there's a lot of cross bracing between the piles, so it makes it a little difficult to put parking under there.
So would that be,
However, I'm sorry, however, we are designing to park at least one boat.
Inflatable, right? Yeah. A 16 foot.
pilings?
Yeah.
I would assume it's gonna be put on pilings.
Yeah.
So they'll run down, they run down to bedrock?
Yeah.
Okay,
The Plymouth we went down 40 feet.
Question, I assume if you're putting a boat underneath that you're gonna have sprinkler system?
Not necessarily.
I know if there was a vehicle, for sure, it's the law, but for a boat, I guess I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
But if you, it's an inflatable, you probably just disconnect it, it doesn't have it in have 10, you probably just take the, or the gas below.
Yeah.
Stephen, any thoughts about emergency generator, especially if you go with that plan, you have the conference room, you can use it as like an incident command center for a big rescue. We have a pollution dump in the harbor and to bring fire department in, Coast Guard,
Yeah.
environmental folks,
We'd be looking at an emergency generator that could be raised up kind of like the mushroom base.
that way you can operate.
Yeah.
Now, if we don't want to incorporate it into the building, what we did at Plymouth was we put it slightly remote, a little bit upland. I'm not sure we have to.
The space.
Well, I think we have a place to put it, but it doesn't rise up as it goes inland.
That's the opposite.
But we can certainly do that, put it on its own separate.
Yeah. Pod.
Question. It's kind of a wild pitch, but the Coast Guard has been having difficulty in cutting costs from the can. It's always been rumors over the last 25 years that they may not stay where they are, they may move, maybe just point out. Would it make sense to have any thought to futuring that building and so that if they ever did leave, that it could become part of the harbor master complex? A lot easier than ripping things apart, putting it together then, I mean, just future lines, I guess.
Yeah, so the use of it, if we built it and they moved in and then left, that's one scenario. If they decided not to move in or left before we built the building, that's another scenario, right? We'll get to that at the end. But the other part of it is really how you decide if you might want to use that facility. Square footage.
And my last question is there an estimated cost for all of this yet?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. You get way ahead of me.
in terms of the look and how it sort of feels on that corner, did you take into account with the condos and how it just sort of it ties in where you got a lot of height with the condos over there? It's weird because you've got such a small height building there now, so you're going up another, what, 20 feet? On basically that entire length, so what'd you say the length was roughly from east to west?
Yeah, we're probably going another 30 feet.
30 feet.
Right,
So-
so we're at 40 feet now, the existing building.
So aesthetically, it wouldn't look too, it's the word gawky with the height and the size of the building on that corner.
No, so I think the goal for us was to design it in a way that looked like it belongs in the waterfront and not necessarily address other buildings that may not necessarily look like they were always there as part of the waterfront. And then when we had that concern too about the view from the condos, and when we looked at it, what we realized all the windows are actually to the north of the building and have a view northeast. So the building would be in their view, but it wouldn't block their view. Yeah. And we think the building would look even better than what's there.
When I first saw the concept, sort of really, it reminded me of the Mill Wharf. So I like the look that's been presented.
So let's see what it looks like in 3D. So here's the building with the harbor master, the public restrooms, and the Coast Guard with the ramps that go up to it, as well as the stair at this end. And we'll look at how the site relates to this in a minute, but you can see that when you come up, there's a covered area here. You can go right into the harbor master's lobby, undercover, and then also a place for people to hang out.
That gives more chairs.
And this is a view looking back at this lower level here with the barn door for the storage. And the deck. If you remember the diagram, you can see the articulated cross gables and the long building. And so this is facing north. And this was just the first pass at how you might have condensing units on the building that don't look out of place necessarily. Or an afterthought. And this is on the northeast corner. So this is where communications center is. That's the harbor master's office.
So Brian, there's like plenty of room to put a crow's nest out there for the office.
That didn't seem to catch on.
Then I added this diagram just for scale. So if you're familiar, this is Plymouth. And so you can see the difference in the scale between Plymouth and Scituate. Of course, the biggest difference in Scituate is the Coast Guard piece of it. So if you took that off, it'd be very similar. It's a little bit bigger. Very similar in scale. So a little bit about the site plan. The landscape architect took a look at existing conditions, identified the existing harbor walk and pathways, and identified a missing pedestrian connection to the harbor walk from downtown. So that was an opportunity. So some of the things we looked at were the location of the building, access from town, and then access out to the boat slips and the harbor walk as well, where the preferred views are. So right now the building is pretty far out. There's a line here, FEMA line that runs right at the edge of the building. And if we were forward to that, we'd have to be up another 4 feet. So we want to keep back to that. The other thing we decided we wanted to try to do is pull the building back as much as we can to open up this corner for the public at grade. So what we did is we pulled it back, and I'll just go to the landscape plan. So we pulled this, so here's that line. So if we were this side, we had to keep this side of that line to keep it at the level of 20 feet, elevation 20. And so we put it back. We can keep going, right? We can keep pushing it back. But the idea is that to open this corner up for the public at grade, and then you can see where the harbor walk is, and it connects to the ramp and the stairs to get up to that upper level. There's also, if you're coming in from town, you can also go up that stair. And it also then has the deck on the north side. There's some reconfiguration of this parking here too, because we lost some parking, and so there's some reconfiguration to try and capture at least a couple more spots that we lost at the other end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I heard you say this could be pushed to my left.
Yeah.
A little more.
Yeah.
The anticipated build on this, the earliest date would probably be 28. By my guess, we wouldn't do anything before we receive appropriate grants. Permitting, et cetera. Is there any consideration to how potentially the FEMA line could change between then and now?
Well, as far as we know,
Right,
it's not gonna change. The 2030 line is set, the 2070 line is set.
Okay.
So. Yeah, so between 30, now they can change it in between there, but as far as we know. We're still within the 2030 line.
how much could it shift should it did change, if it does change between now and the
Don't
building?
know.
No, the buildings
Oh.
could shift?
Yeah, so we can, right now, we're providing 2 parking spaces and a bit of a drive, so that drive can get shorter. We can get rid of the parking, so we can just keep going. Now, one of the challenges, of course, is we know we're gonna replace the harbor master facility, but we don't, if the Coast Guard is not part of this project, what happens to that building?
And if they stay, but, you know,
Right, if they stay in that building and it doesn't get incorporated, then that has an effect on where this thing can go.
Is
But
there-
presumably, they're either in here or they're gone.
Is there enough space if they decided they didn't want to be part of this, but wanted their current building? Is there enough space for a new harbor master building and a new bathroom facility
It might have to move up this way a little bit.
closer to the line?
Closer to the line.
Go ahead, Brian, you have a question.
Could you kind of spin it to keep it away from that line, pivot it, I guess?
We did look at that. It's, you start to lose more parking, you're trying to keep it compact with that corner. We did look at that.
And right now, there's a dumpster behind the building, where's that gonna get?
Well, we haven't fully developed all that, but there's certainly room back in this corner here. We can screen it from the harbor. Presumably, if you came up that driveway, you could access it from this side.
You said you lost some parking space. Do you know how many roughly?
I don't remember the exact numbers. Yeah, we lost 4. We added 2 or something like that.
With the dimensions of the building, is there some type of a requirement for how many, for handicapped, or is that more of a capacity for handicapped spaces for a building?
Yeah, so we're sort of deferring to the other group who's doing the entire parking lot exercise. I mean, obviously, some of these will have to be accessible. I think we're assuming these are.
Yeah.
Just because they're close to the ramp and the entrance to the building. But that's a larger exercise with what's going on elsewhere. Okay.
Yep.
So that's a view walking up to it now. Answer your question. So what would it look like? If this is the Coast Guard building and we were to decide they weren't gonna be part of the project. They're gonna leave Scituate. So we could simply remove them. And that's what it would look like. So you basically have this up to the bathrooms. And it would be simplified, pretty straightforward. The way it was designed, easily cut that off. And that's maybe what it would look like.
Nice looking building.
So that's that. Now, for costs, what we did as a first exercise, we do have a cost estimator looking at it. You have the numbers back in time. What I did is I took a first pass at looking at what Plymouth cost, because I know that project. And it was $4 million divided by the square footage. I got $1,800 a square foot, but that included site work, building, piles, utilities, emergency generator, included everything. So I took that, figured out a cost per square foot, which is $1,800, escalated it for today's dollars, and then applied it to the square footage of this, and we came to about 10 to 12 million. And then if we were to take out,
Chris, for all 3.
For all three, that's exactly, thank you for that segue. Then, if we were to take out the Coast Guard building, then it was probably 7 to 10 or 7 to 9. For them. Again, order magnitude today's dollars, maybe not 2028, so we'd have to add escalation for that. That makes sense.
Maybe we don't need bathrooms.
Well, at 1,800 square foot, just the Coast Guard section itself would be 3.3 million. Because it's 1,866 square feet for just the Coast Guard section.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's 7 to 9 million.
Yeah.
Without the Coast Guard.
so, right.
And the Coast Guard building square footage would be approximately how much, the new one?
1800.
I'm sorry, 1,800. And memory serves me correct, Marion was 1,500 square feet, a $3.5 million build, and the reason that the expense would be less to do a larger building is because the mob demo costs, or what would that reason be?
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
No, that was what Jim was saying today.
Pardon me?
That was what Jim Boudreau was saying today.
I'm saying
Talking
something
about the-
different right now, though, so what he was saying today,
I wasn't sure,
Yeah.
you know,
So Marion costs 3.5 million built, and it's 1,500 square feet. This would be 1,800 square feet, but Mike's saying 3.3, so it would be,
I'm saying 3.3 just for Coast Guard section.
That's what I'm saying.
$1,800.
comparing
per
buildings,
foot.
1,500 square feet,
Yeah.
Marion, 1,800 square
Well,
feet. for Coast Guard.
don't forget, that doesn't include the ramps, the stairs and all that other stuff. That's, we still have to do all that,
Right,
whether the Coast Guard's there or not. We have the same amount of ramp and stairs,
Okay.
so. There's that piece of it. It's not an entirely separate building, it's just a part of the building.
I think that's what Jim meant by the demo, like you're already here, you're already doing the piles, build the building, you're already building the ramps, all the, you know, in the first grade.
Got it.
So, and these are just order of magnitude numbers right now. We're gonna get some more detailed numbers from the estimator.
From the estimator, it's going to be current dollars, or would it be $28, or could we have both?
We could do well.
Can we?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, if we did build for the Coast Guard and they'd like 10 years. What other options do we have in the town to repurpose that space so they can work?
That's something the town. Waterways and everybody else would have to decide
Turn
in
on
10
investment.
years.
No. What TJ's asking is, what could the building be? Not who has to decide that in 10 years. We're asking, what it could it be? It could be a 7-Eleven, could it be a police station? I think that's what he's really asking, right?
Would it be something we lease the town lease out? Really.
Again, that's
I
a
know it's
question,
probably-
you know,
I'm just saying, if we invest now, right, and spend the extra 3.5 million to put the Coast Guard spot, they pull out a few years and who knows? They're dumping money into the Coast Guard like nobody's business now because of the border. So I don't know if it's gonna help their staffing and then, you know,
I have
something happens in
no
4
idea.
years and then we try again, so.
Lobster rolls.
that's a,
Lobster rolls.
that would be probably a, you know. Jim
I
Boudreau
mean,
question.
Kevin could probably have a window there or something like that, so.
Well, can the Coast Guard go back to where they were? I mean, Noah's got one boat.
I mean, he's over there now, aren't they, Steve?
Yes, well, we're assuming that building's gone.
No.
The old Coast Guard building across the harbor.
Oh.
I think that was already given to Noah, the whole site, so trying to get it back from Noah would be.
It's on a $1 lease.
And if Noah doesn't exist, then
So here, but here's the other thing we did learn about
Noah's
the
in
Coast
the
Guard,
building.
is they operate out of Hull. This is just a satellite out of Hull.
Right.
And when I asked them, I said, well, if there's an incident, you need to come to Scituate and operate. He goes, we pick up a trailer, we bring it down, we operate out of the trailer.
That was their answer?
Yeah. So, my mind, I questioned the need for a building, quite frankly, but what do I know? The Coast Guard.
And Stephen, if they were working an incident and to your point, they drag a 29 footer down by
No, my point, I didn't say that.
No,
The Coast Guard said it.
The Coast Guard, right, so the Coast Guard's point. They can probably operate for the day out of, like, if they need to be.
That's what that conference room would be for.
Exactly, so they have the bathrooms, the restrooms, they have the showers, they can self-sustain for, you know, a day or something, if there's something like
They don't have any beds.
that. Look, just slept on the 29 before, so. A little bit of non-skid rash on your face.
They're young, the guys, ouch, they're good.
Guys and girls, so gals.
You get the bathrooms to accommodate. That's a scenario, so if they don't need that building, then they can operate on a case by case basis. I know it's a big case.
So, I don't know a lot about how the Coast Guard works, but, so before you build a building this size and you give them a third of the space, do they give you a commitment? Do they say, we're gonna be around for 2 years? Or is that not a budgetary thing that the Coast Guard can do? Because it seems like a total waste, to build something 33% more, somebody who might be there, might not.
But that goes back to my question, you build for them.
But you get an answer, could you get, before you start a project like this, can you at least get a 1 year commitment, 2 years?
You could get you could work out on these
5 year?
terms, but I'm not sure in the current environment financially what their plan is. And it changes year to year. Steve will tell you like, hey, we might come back this year, might not.
Cause all I hear from being on the water from the Coast Guard is that they're just getting, up here, they're getting chopped, yeah,
Yeah, it's all going down south.
all going down south, so. Seems crazy to be in a situation like this, just to have them.
So Kevin, we would be able to get a little bit more. They currently pay $270.83 a month. That is a number. So maybe we get up to like $290.
What happens if you don't lock it? What happens if you don't lock it?
And
What
have
happens if you
200-year payback in
What
the
happens if you just
building.
don't offer the space?
Good question.
I mean, you don't have to, do you have to offer the space as a town? Like you have to say, well, can you just say, we're going ahead with this project and you're not included?
The
You
only
can work out a home.
That's a good point, Kevin. The only caution flag I throw is like senators and our reps have really worked hard to keep them here
No, I know,
4 or 5
I know.
years ago. That would be the political.
But
That
if you're
why,
fighting something that's gonna go away no matter what, at what point do you just give up before this?
But we wouldn't necessarily be kicking them out if they still had their little trailer there.
Right, and they're working on it.
Right.
And they're working.
And give them a slip. You know, in the marine.
I think we should talk about that. Yes, of course.
I mean, no one wants Coast Guard around more than guys that fish on water, but if it's an inevitable thing.
Right.
And we're all learning as it is now, you know, the water that we gotta look out for ourselves because, you know, the time to get a Coast Guard to you now has got longer and longer. And the same thing with, you know, any type of rescue.
Steve, was there any conversation with the captain of the port about what their intentions were, or was it kind of like?
they intend on staying is what we were told. Point blank, that's what he said.
And I
But
do
the
know,
captain report changes every 2 years, so
Well, what was our experience last summer? Were they here full time?
no, they were here weekends.
Weekends, just from Memorial Day to Labor Day or,
Yeah, a
or
little later. I
or
think.
Columbus,
No, they were gone.
September 15th fully.
So to your point, we're looking at a building for 1 month of the year on weekends.
Well, yeah, I'm getting the same thing.
Yeah, I'm in full support of having those guys down in Scituate.
Me
Fought
too.
hard to have them.
Right.
Down here, we want them to be here, but at 3.5 million or whatever the number is, without any sort of long-term commitment, it just doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense.
on the political side, I do understand, we've got a very active, congressional group that has a lot of pull and they're very tied in with the Coast Guard. And that's why I'm pretty sure you're seeing the Harbor Master Coast Guard on the bottom of these tiles, that they can probably swing some weight to be able to get us some good, some grants on the federal level to help with the building. Besides, we know that with the Seaport Council, where the money seems to be tightening up quite a bit, that may give us an opportunity to be able to get some more grants to make the costs a little bit more bearable. Just another thought.
How much did Marshfield get for a grant, you know?
Where's the mail?
Sir?
So we need like the mail.
It's 50-50. I think he was the other 50 you were getting, right?
So the seaport is usually 80-20. We take 20. They'll pay 80, but there's a cap each year, how much they'll give.
It's not each year, it's each phase of different projects. Could be just,
Okay, so the maximum they'll give a town usually is $1 million, correct? That's what I'm saying about a cap. So unless we're planning on a 10-year build, we'd be looking at probably 3 million in grants. 3-year build, 3 phases, I don't know.
no idea how long it's gonna take to build.
Chris? How long would something like this take to build?
12 to 18 months.
All 3 buildings, right? How about 2?
Right, about the same. I mean, it's not.
Damn it.
Good, I like what you think. though.
You get, 9 women, you have a baby in a month. Included in your estimates, is it, I would imagine that you're gonna, well, not imagine, it looks like you have to take the existing buildings down. What's the, have you included an estimate on, temporary buildings, temporary restrooms and showers and a trailer for the harbor restaurant?
Stephen, where would you operate out of for a 2-year period, you know?
Probably out of trailers,
What would the trails be?
parking lot.
Bandstand, maybe we could just put some wrap on it.
Maybe out of the Marshfield have messed us up.
I had the Coast Guard has a trailer.
Good, Dave.
So, Dave Duff from 356 Clap Road. Part of this whole discussion started about feasibility and the actual condition of our existing facility. Can you update us on that report and what you found when you looked into that? And what I'm seeing here is the handicap accessory bathrooms are separate from the harbor master building, so if we were to build a separate building to accommodate handicap access to bathrooms, and our existing building is okay for now. You know, that's kind of where I'm.
Well, that's a good question. So when we looked at the existing building, and if we were gonna upgrade it, the cost of upgrading would trigger it to comply with FEMA. Which means we have,
50% of the assessed value.
yeah, exactly. So we have to raise the entire building. It's concrete slab on grade. So now we're having to remove, we wouldn't be able to lift the slab, so we'd end up having to lift the whole building without the floor and build a new frame. And the cost of that would be, and you wouldn't get a new building, basically. You'd just get the same building but higher. And so we felt that the cost of that was to the point where it was actually the same to do a new building.
So they talked about the assessed value of it, of the building itself, and I don't remember the exact number on that. The actual rehab of the building itself would be to accommodate the handicap access bathrooms, correct? I mean, is that?
Yeah, well, then if we wanted a conference room, right, and we wanted some other spaces in there, we'd have to do an addition. Right, so now you're gonna trigger it. I think
Yeah, what was the assess, was it
150 is what I was told.
What, 1,
The code, if I could just speak on that,
Doesn't
the code actually says the fair market value, not the assessed value.
Okay.
So every time we have a residence, for example, that's about to trigger that, we tell them to go out and get a private appraisal.
Okay.
Because that appraisal will come in regularly 30, 40, 50% greater than the assessed value.
because I believe the assessed value is slightly over $1 million right now, and it's mostly the land. I believe the building itself is about 200,000, maybe 140.
So that's assessed, so fair
Well,
market.
that's the other point to make, that when
Yes.
you're looking at it, it's only the
It's
building
just the building itself.
value, it's
Doesn't-
not the land.
Right,
value.
so what would be triggering the FEMA event is on a much smaller number, correct?
Only the building
Right,
value,
yeah.
but the fair market value.
Right.
As opposed to the assessed value.
right. And even if it was 2x, you're still talking about 300,000. on a fair market value, right? And again, any kind of improvements would probably trigger the FEMA event of raising, right?
Presumably, yeah. I mean, you're gonna spend $500,000 to $1 million at least. Fix it up. Now you've exceeded the value of the building.
We get a grant to elevate the existing building and then put a small addition on it.
The slab, built on a slab,
Right,
you
so
have
you're-
to try to raise up
We do
walls
it,
without
we do it all the time.
raising up this
You
concrete.
just. You have to dig under it. And put cribbing underneath it, stabilize the structure and slowly raise it up. And then demolish the existing foundation, drive irons.
Okay,
We do it. multiple
concrete
times a year.
slabs.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, this is Corey Mills, she's the
Miles. 40 miles.
Corey Miles. Mills, sorry. She's the coastal resource officer and she was part of the working group because she's very involved with the reconstruction of Oak Parkway. I just wanted to introduce her,
Thank you.
if you didn't know.
Welcome.
And administers the FEMA grant program.
Mr. Speaker, in from Marshfield, Mike, what did Marshfield get for the harbor master building grants? 2.1 million, but those days are gone.
Anybody else?
That it?
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Really nice presentation. Now, I'd also like to really thank the feasibility study team for all their hard work, but also for being here tonight, if there were any questions, just to be here, we appreciate it. It's a sizable commitment to what we're trying to accomplish. It's something that we're going to need. So having the ability to really take a good look at planning and deciding how we're going to move forward. We're taking our time and bringing the right people together to make good decisions for our community. So really appreciate everything that everybody's done on this project. Have we given you any action items to come back to us with? Was there anything for Chris that we really wanted to see? Did we want to see any different looks on the interior of the building? Was there anything that we were talking about that you want to see changed from what has been presented?
I think we made some suggestions on the floor plan, but whether, I don't know who dictates the floor plan, whether you think they're good ideas and it's easy to incorporate them, I think that would be great, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So what I'll say about that is the previous version, more similar to what you're talking about, and there could be several different iterations. I think the purpose of this is feasibility. So, the footprint,
Yeah,
if
I
the
think
footprint doesn't
any
change,
changes beyond this is an
generally-
extra.
it's the same building, and we can.
Yeah,
So,
good.
And
Point taken.
this happened on other projects we've done is we'll do the feasibility and then the whole thing changes anyway, right? So, but I think, but I think that the footprint's pretty good. So we can certainly work within that.
So Dave, I got a question. What are the next steps? Where are we going with this?
Well,
So if I could I have put together a report, like Stephen and I are still fine tuning it. It has the thing about what to do with the existing building, it has the estimate, it has the design narrative, it has the existing conditions report. There's all that in it. To supplement the drawings, but we're still tweaking it. And I'm also getting an estimate from an estimator too that I'll incorporate in there. So those are sort of our action items going forward.
that would get turned over to the town administrator and the select board.
and then I would assume that the select board and the town administrator will be looking at direction. And then probably provide us with some guidance on what the next steps are.
Yeah, the public outreach kind of portion of it to get more of the public kind of involved, like this was wasn't a posted meeting today, so just
This was the meeting, you know.
it was a posted meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
just your agenda wasn't posted?
That's correct.
Okay.
And if we had Chris back, it would be an additional fee, right?
Everything's, from this point forward, everything's extra.
Well, you know, worth it.
I'm happy to.
Mr. Chairman,
Oops, I'm sorry.
Dave
Dave
Sinkowski.
Sinkowski.
yeah,
Dave.
quick question. Will there be formal recommendations from this board back to this entity running this, that there's some changes we would like to see considered? I mean, not to repeat them, but I think the ideas that Brian Cronin shared were very good ones. And I just don't know what is the mechanism to get that across.
To your point, David, I think, what you were saying earlier, I think one of the things in the process should be the committee making the recommendation to the selectmen.
Right. That's why my question was to the chairman. Sorry.
Nope, that's good. And that'll probably be it. Once we get the final report, we'll go through it again. Take a look at it. Maybe even meet with you guys one more time if there's any other questions, if we have to. And then we'll make a recommendation to the select board.
Great. Thank you.
Dave,
Sorry,
That's all right, Chris. When we did our post-it note
yes,
little program there, a few of the things that I remember that we discussed was room or a place for police, fire, perhaps EPs in this existing
That was the conference room
layout.
there, David. That's that conference room.
All right, so
That's a
my
conference meeting
question,
room.
my question to Chris was how was that incorporated in this?
so there are two things, was that, which we assumed would be in the conference room, but the other part of it was the visitor center, if you recall. Right, and so what we talked about doing was having sort of a kiosk sort of display on the walls outside, maybe under the cover in the hallways there for that.
any other questions or comments? Okay,
I guess my only comment would be that when we were talking earlier, just throwing numbers around in the prior meeting, we we're thinking 4 to 5 million, was kind of the high number, right? So now we're looking at pretty much double that. I know it's just kind of rough estimate numbers, but it's pretty big cost to come up with. It's a pretty big number. And not sure if we can get too much in the way of grants. No, we don't know that yet, but all that makes a big difference in and if we're making a recommendation to the select board or not, we really need to know that information a little bit more concrete before we can really talk about that. So and then obviously run the financials to see what it looks like costing us per year for I would imagine 20 years debt service.
So a lot of those costs, right, that you referred to, like Marshfield, those are all pre-COVID. And you know what happened after COVID, plus escalation, so.
Oh, yeah, I'm not pushing blame on this.
Yeah, no. Okay,
all right,
very
thank you.
good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Let's take 5. Get Chris cleaned up, get him out of here. We've gone through with feasibility, guys. If you want to gal, if you'd like to get the heck out of here, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate it.
Include me.
Huh? You're next.
I had no idea.
Going to the right.
Thanks, Chris. Sorry,
Some people say it's a person.
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out to.
Yeah.
Looked at it, talked over.
Well, no, where it goes from there.
Yeah. Hopefully. It's funny, so we did close from the day we did. Yeah, ribbon cutting over 6 years.
We had to do the runway at Nashville Airport. They had given up, so they brought me in specifically to help try to get it going and manage it. But it's still, because the law, it's still, it's not okay. We finally broke ground. Those five. Restrictions.
Yeah, I don't think, keep in mind too, you know this, is that when you're looking at costs,
Come on.
you always add 40% for public vision, right? So that always increases the cost, so you assume for like. Plus escalation, plus postcode. And all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
You ready to go?
Thanks again, Paul.
Yeah.
So that's why.
What is it? The eyes.
I don't know. Dave? Dave Deneen,
Greetings.
I assume you're gonna leave momentarily?
I'm gonna try to.
Okay, you don't need support at the select board meeting?
Say what?
You need any support at the select board meeting?
Nope, because Pierce is gonna be there, so I'm just gonna be there to hopefully support him.
All right.
If you do leave, but no votes, no motions, nothing. Nope, just
Just information. Yep, really.
no discussion.
Say again?
Theoretically. They're gonna be keep us for the waterways.
What I had heard was that anybody that's up for rear, they have to make just say, anybody that has problems has. And I know for us, when we were in the chat.
Right?
Yeah, so I think it's on the same plan.
During COVID, when we had all this.
Yes, I'm not sure.
Yes, FaceTime and all didn't have any issues. He was the guy said.
There was nothing like variable.
In the time that's so
worried about it.
Ancient. So
That's the
I
issue.
don't know when he was hired, but I'm sure you required like journalists.
So to just give updates on.
And bring on.
So
We had that place.
Absolutely.
You know what team? Yeah, yes. And then when I listen to it, it's just been a lot.
It's really their decision.
Okay, well. Anything we can do, let us know.
Always. Wanna get going?
Yes.
We have a phone?
Yes,
Yes.
we do, and Dave Sikoski.
Stephen Lee.
He's
No, his phone's right there.
running around. He was just walking.
But then again.
He was walking Chris out.
Did
you want me to- Did you want me to hook this in
No.
back up?
You can, it's not working.
Okay. We did chairman's report, we did feasibility, so.
You have that? You need this?
Yeah, we got, that's with the harbor master report. The numbers are good. Yeah, so we get that. I'm gonna mention in just as soon as it gets Stephen back.
per season.
I agree with prime space, put it
It's perfect so you can have one person, I just, I could see as well, now we need a fourth. And the closets for the wall.
Right.
Both walls, there were closets on outdoor walls.
Well, while we're waiting for Stephen, let's just sort of get this back and keep it moving. We'll come back to Stephen, the harbor master report, financial update, Brian.
Nothing? No. We are gonna have a meeting of the subcommittee. We just about pulled all the expense information. Nancy sent me some additional data this morning that she said was not totally complete, so hopefully during the week I'll have it, and we'll have a subcommittee meeting. And I think we're prepared at the June meeting to open up public discussion on a 5-year plan.
So probably July, we'll have a ability to invite the public to come to hear about what our plans are going to be moving out 5 years.
Yep, you're the chairman, you can decide which one, but we can have discussion on the June meeting internally and then public discussion on the July meeting, right?
Yep.
And then the document can be created and sent after it's voted on to the select board.
So it sounds that you're pretty comfortable that we'll be able to get that to them on time.
Sometime being October,
September, yep.
probably.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't get too twisted in a public hearing.
I know that you've been really trying to get the numbers and it took a while. Otherwise we'd be a little bit closer, but
Yes, and as we know, the hot potato was how to project the cost of a structure. So,
12 million.
Yeah.
Plus inflation.
so it's what grants we could get and which we won't get. So I mean, if you want me to project 12 million, I can do this right now. It's about 1.2 million out of the debt service. And our debt service,
More time, 1.2 million.
yeah, that's my, if it was 12 million, that's my guess. Our debt service starts, we hit a ceiling on the debt service somewhere around 4.25, 450. And my projections, assuming we're gonna do dredging, is we're gonna be right on top of that number prior to adding any monies to the harbor master bill.
Right.
So slip revenue is about 750,000 a year, give or take, so a 10% lack there would really be negligible. So you're looking at some pretty significant increases on the 3 of the 4 levers that we control. Mooring rates, what do you say, slip fees, to be able to support the debt service on a structure like this, but we can go into it in greater detail. I'll have those numbers and I'll run them at 12 million, 8 million, 5 million.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
We can alter it
50 cents.
for 5 million.
You know, one of the things I forget to ask was, is the site the best place for this structure? In other words, we're assuming that we're rebuilding an existing building. Is it the best place
I'm pretty sure that
for such a structure?
that question was asked.
Okay.
And they felt it was the right location. Didn't have to worry about any problems with anything in the ground because they'll be putting it on piles, which the piles will go down to the bedrock. So that's why I was asking more of the aesthetic look and how it would sort of look at that area. It'd be a little bit different at first, but you know, I think with
I
the
can remember the discussions about storing the floats in Colt Parkway and what a problem it was.
Huge.
To
Right.
obstruct the view. I know it's suddenly we got. Yeah.
Dave Deneen, I mean, to say that it would be a little bit different at first, the view, it's a 3-story building on with the stilts. It's gonna be enormous. It's this just like taking those condos and bringing them right up to the water's edge.
Yep.
I don't think we should minimize this, and I think the public's gonna have something to say too.
Yep. So we'll get those numbers, and, sort of go with our plan, and, thank you for everything you've been doing.
Sure.
But what's to say that Waterways has to finance this entire project, including the Coast Guard? Maybe at some point, the town has to contribute to the pot. Why are we paying for the entire thing? Marshfield's different, it comes out of general fund, Plymouth it comes out of general fund.
Yeah.
And here we're gonna agonize how it's gonna come on the back.
Well-
People who slips, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about the same thing, that shouldn't really have to be all on the backs of waterways, right?
Right.
And again, that's something that can be worked on those other levels when we get there. And I think Marshfield, well, the harbor master is police. I don't know, is Plymouth police as well? Are they
No,
do they operate under the police?
Money comes out of the general fund, they don't have a price fund, million bills.
Hmm.
So it's all a
Okay.
different ballgame. If we want this type of structure, maybe there has to be underwritten partially by the general fund. Certainly, if we were to build a Coast Guard building or a state police building or fire marshal for the state of Massachusetts building, whatever we're building, we, maybe he has to be funded in a different way.
Didn't Dave Haley want to put a muscle building or something in there?
It was more of a gym. It wasn't, yeah.
Some company give it naming rights.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
But your wife said it, probably not sorry.
that's great. So Brian, thank you. Marketing update, as everybody knows, Mike Bierce is down there right now. The other thing that Mike's been doing, so we're gonna, looks like the opening of the harbor event's gonna be happening. We'll be looking for some volunteers to help out that night. Kevin's gonna be there. We're very excited to see his new truck. If you haven't had a chance to visit him, hopefully that'll be a good time. Did they give you a location where you can park the truck for the night? Okay. Yeah. The other thing, I've been getting very friendly. They've got a new chair with the Economic Development Commission, and I guess that everybody knows that they put together a lot of various grants for people, for nonprofits, but also I'm actually meeting with Barry tomorrow morning at the state of the town. He's going to tell us that committees and commissions are also eligible to put in for grants. So maybe there's something that we can use to help continue to market our harbor. So I'm going to talk to him and learn a little bit more about that and have some better information for everybody next month. I thought that was pretty interesting. That was really about it. We've been working pretty hard on this thing, and just so everybody knows, and I know Steven's been right there, that Mike Bierce has done a great job just sort of managing the whole thing, and he's down there right now, so he's all fired up. So it's good. I think if it's okay, I'm going to try to get out of here. Steven, do you have the updated numbers on shoulder season?
We have 12 boats, and I think it was like $4,500.
Yep. Yeah, we've according to what the latest figure I got was for the season, and we started late, as everybody knows. We've had 36 boats utilizing the slips, and we've just made over $4,000, as Steven said. So considering how late it was, it's a good start. It's going to help. I think we're going to do it'll be very interesting to see how it goes in the fall, especially if we have a good season with both of the marinas being able to help collect some more revenue. So looks like it's hopefully going to be a win. Any challenges on your end with shoulder season? Great. Okay. I hope everybody doesn't mind me sneaking out of here. Brian's going to run the meeting. I thank everybody for being here. I'm out.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Old Parkway Marina piling replacement project.
Complete.
I'm not, this is under you, but the coastal buoy modernization that.
Yeah, so I went to the meeting that was held in Marshfield, the Harbor, Boston Harbor Committee meeting. And Coast Guard was there. And Corps and some other groups, and the Coast Guard. Told us that they would be. They were looking into removing 3 buoys in the Scituate area. Carpouch, SA, and New Inlet. They're looking for input from the general public on this. I spoke to Jim Boudreau on it, and he said, yeah, how you want me to present it to the public through constant contact. So if Waterways wants to come up with some sort of letter that I can put in constant contact, and then I was gonna give it to Jim as well, so that he can present it to the town on his regular report. So we really need that sooner rather than later.
Right, the date closes, coming closes, June something.
I think it's the 12th, I think. But I sent out the information to Dave Deneen, he has it. I know Marshfield's already put something out, but Jim wanted me to have Waterways come up with what needs to be said.
So how would we do this? We can't vote or anything tonight.
Don't need to vote on, I don't think it's a vote.
Yeah, I think
it's
we just
a
need to come up with a draft. like,
Draft.
and just. And get it to. Maybe,
I mean, you can just say you can get together and come up with some sort of draft and email it to me.
yeah, yeah, we'll do that. I'll take it and work with Brian. We'll just volunteer.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, understood.
How do we get that out to the voting public?
Constant contact.
And then Jim Boudreau is gonna send it out on his, Scituate doesn't like an update every week.
So there'll be a link there, so somebody can write the Coast Guard.
Yeah, there's an email.
There's the
address.
email address.
It's pretty pathetic what they're trying to do. Taking a bunch out of Woods Hole, we were just talking in the hallway, it's crazy. I didn't have any through Woods Hole with no buoys.
It's the flavor of the year, it's the resourcing going, we're looking for ways to move.
They called it $1.something billion for buoys.
But Kevin was asking last year for lighted 1 and 2.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I brought that up again, even though I was promised that, and they don't have any money for additional electronic gates.
It's because they don't, I mean, even like the radar. I feel like we almost have to do that ourselves.
Can't
You're better off. I guess
But
flashlights we can put on.
you can't touch them because.
I know you can't touch them because they're not in government, I know
It's
that's.
government property.
I guess we gotta wait till somebody gets.
On that same note, the buoy tenders were at the mouth of the river today.
Yeah,
Moving buoys.
9, 11, and they put the number 2, South River number 2
Back
back.
again.
Back on station.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Mike, he was dragging it down to the building. Okay, so we'll take that, Stephen, as an action item to get you that.
Yeah.
The-
I'm gonna be gone next week,
Okay,
so
try to get it by Friday.
Friday morning,
Okay. We can do
I will
that.
not be coming back in to post it.
You don't happen to have what Marshfield had, just to, so we.
I do not.
the Framework.
I did.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good just to kind of look at it and say, okay, yeah, right, we did do that.
What was the Coast Guard's demeanor? Is this like a fait accompli, or is it
A what?
a fait accompli, meaning they made the decision they're not going to budge?
They haven't made any decision yet. That's what they're asking the general public for their input, their comment.
They're gonna do any good?
I don't work for the Coast Guard. I don't know.
They've probably done is an analysis on every one of these areas. And look at voting fatalities, certain rescue case calls. And is there any data point to support these? If you take a look at that chart, it goes from the Canadian border all the way down into New York. So I mean, there's
Yeah, I don't, you
100,000
know,
boots on there. So
Honestly, could we go do the tar post? Yeah, probably, right?
but the essay boots,
SA and it's like the entrance to the river, yeah.
I mean, everybody's we tar poach. Number one.
but they're looking at it like there are electronic gates
It's
there.
exactly 1 mile from the belt,
You
so
know.
it gives you can.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome home.
One or two people that wished it wasn't there when they hit it.
Okay, so
Yes. Thank you. Shoulder season, we did that Jericho Road.
Jericho, parking lot, I believe they're talking about, starting, do base coat tomorrow possibly. And it depends on if they're able to move crews around because they want to get, large crew down there, to start the base coat. Yeah. Hopefully we start tomorrow.
And have people been able to use it?
I don't see it during the day being used. I don't go there at night, so I don't know.
Happening.
I do see, I definitely see people using, back ramp. Simmons has been down there, launching all sorts of boats. A lot of people were down there today launching boats. So that's been used. People would come in, I said, best thing to do, go down there at dead low tide, look around, see what, what hazards, if there are any, based on your boat's draft. And I'd come back at high tide and move my boat. That was my recommendation to them.
Sound advice.
Stephen, on Jericho Road, they took out some huge boulders.
Yep.
And how do they fill that back in so it all doesn't sink? Use crushed.
With material, yeah, they have material, they know what they have engineers down there and.
I was surprised to see that they were that big. I mean, like a Volkswagen.
Should have put 1619 on them, told you. That's why Pilgrims came here first.
Charge people to see it.
Little extra
They're
scratch.
ahead of schedule.
Okay, great. Unforeseen expenses, no. Okay, so we've done the financial update. Done the marketing liaison report. Dave Deneen, no. Mike, anything on the Cole Parkway redevelopment?
Yep, so we did meet since our last meeting here. Generally, we were just discussing some of the other things, it was really Corey, we should have asked her for the update tonight, but really just some of the areas that they were looking to fortify better, like behind the Coast Guard building, and what the proposal was for there, and raising the grade of the pavement to about 10 feet in terms of speed humps behind where the condos are. So if you picture where Nona's is, right? Putting some speed humps that are there that are would actually prevent the water from inflowing into the Cole Parkway. And then they took into account some of the feedback we gave them on one of their prior meetings on the design, where they were looking at taking away like 60 parking spaces from the middle to the, you gotta get rid of that completely. So they're still, design and throwing stuff at us to look at each meeting. And then the next step, I think what they told us was they're gonna start organizing public meetings so that they can get these ideas out to the public, right? And get public feedback on what they're looking to do and try to build a consensus around what needs to be done. So it's everything from looking at the parking lot, what needs to be done there in terms of drainage, and how to protect the stores in the parking lot area from future flooding, to the repair of the drainage systems, to the raising of the grade of the overall parking lot by, I think, up to, from an area that's as low as like 6 or 7 feet up to 9 feet all the way across. Then when you get over, because it does slope up towards, like, we call it the CBS area. The latest plan incorporates almost like Jersey barriers that would go from, let's call it Rocco's there in that corner, all the way down to like towards Coffee Corner there, with very few breaks in it, and the breaks would be designed that if they needed to put some sort of blocker in during storm events, they could slide something in to keep water from coming in. And then they wouldn't look just like New Jersey barriers, they would make the top of those things like planter type things, so that they could actually have it flowering stuff out of it, so it would be too much of an eyesore.
Won't look like the city.
they're trying to prevent it from looking like that. Yeah. Looking at all concrete, but at the same time, they're trying to prevent water from these storm events, trying to push up into those areas.
So.
Going from 4 feet.
Oh, no, in some areas of Cole Parkways, it's lower as don't quote me this, but I think they said 7 feet. But it would go, but there's, if you look at it from north to south, it really pitches a ton to where the drains are, right? I think taking some of that out of it, but getting the overall height of the parking area itself up closer to 9.
But the hard master slab right now is 10 feet, I think, that's what
That's what
Chris
it
said.
said.
Yeah, so that's, see, I have to go look at it, seems like a lot.
It did, but when they showed us to us in the kind of the plans, it didn't seem to be as aggressive as I thought, right? And they talked about the pitch, you know, what they would do in different areas to kind of create drainage. Obviously, all the piping that's under the parking lot, which is all crushed today, and that parking lot is sunken down a lot over the years. It's all peat underneath, so we lost some of the height of the parking lot over the years just from continuing settling. So.
Did they talk about how they'd prevent that from settling again over the next 50 years?
No, just keep that down the road. I
Well,
don't
it could
know.
be my problem.
I don't know if there's too much they can do about that in terms of material. They know it's all loose kind of. So that was built, I mean. The older people in the room like Dave can probably tell us that, you know, that used to be a marsh, right, that was paved over.
Yeah, if you go into, actually, if you go into Mill Wharf and you look to the right as you head to the men's room, there's really neat overheads. Back when it was a creek from Mill Wharf, which was the Welch Company, all the way to the boatyard back in the 50s, I think late 40s. So that was, and then the hockey, you know, that parking lot itself was. And when they did the water mains, when they were digging replacing those water mains, they got into some sour stuff, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But
So I was kidding, but it really was actually built on top of marsh land, so.
and you throw a
that
carnival down
material-
there with a twister whirl and a couple of Ferris wheels.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna make it go further up. It's driving that whole thing, and it's really, when you look at it, I'd be surprised if it didn't make an effect where the carnival is and where that settling is, really doesn't help.
Yeah, I don't think they said exactly how much they didn't settle, but they said it's settled a lot. Over the years.
Well, and the water's coming up through the catch basin too.
It is, yeah.
You know, before it even comes over the wall on just a high tide in the spring, no wind.
Yep.
Comes up.
They tried to do some stuff with those catch basins, but what they found is that there was no good documentation on the existing layout of the stuff. And they found when they went in and scoped a lot of those pipes were actually crushed underneath. So there's no way they can put gates in to help block that water from coming in during the storm.
Yeah, it may not be coming in from the pipes, it might be coming in from the.
Yeah, well, we know it does come in from the pipes, but it's hard to kind of to block it because they can't figure out what's crushed under there. And where the water comes from.
All the pipes at Jericho were crushed.
Well,
They
they
got
are,
completely
yeah.
replaced, yeah.
All right, thank you, Mike, that's
Yep.
comprehensive. Dave Sinkowski, Shellfish Advisory, any update?
No, sir. I know Susan sent out a notice for a meeting next week, and I think it's the first time we met in many months. So by the next meeting.
Thank you. New business, I don't think we have any new business. Old business. We're not gonna discuss any. Police department update? If any?
I see that the safety force, a bunch of our officers did complete that. To the EPs. We should be over the next few weeks. Becoming fully operational, 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days a week. This summer.
That one boat, two boats, or
We have two boats in the water now.
so will two boats be going 10 to 10?
Not, they're both in the water, we'll be staffed,
Yeah.
you know, not, both boats won't be staffed unless it's like a busy weekend or something like that.
Yeah, awesome.
I saw them in the river yesterday. Mike Wall was down in the, it was all black.
Yeah, that's the smaller one.
Yeah, yeah, it was,
We keep that in the river year round.
yeah, it was good, because things are heating up a little, yeah.
Question on the agenda, Brian?
Sure.
North Jetty Harbor entrance?
The North Jetty, I think, but. Who's down looking at the North Jetty?
Gary Corps, is that on the agenda?
Yeah, the one that was passed out. It says, North Jetty Harbor entrance, Army Corps will look at the jetty with Harbor Master Moon this week.
Oh, I think that's the minutes.
That's the minutes.
That'll be at the agenda. Okay, so did they look at it?
They did. They came down and looked at it and they have funding to do it and
Right.
they're working.
You fix it this year, do you think?
No.
No.
It's the federal government. Nothing gets done that fast.
But it's on the agenda, that's good. That's good.
They were down, they all came down, they got down on the, they saw what's going on and they're working on
Why does it break apart? It's just because so much.
Waves.
Centrifugal force.
it. Big waves.
Well, it's broken apart a few times. Not just once.
Yeah, it's just big waves. Mother Nature's very strong.
It's cranky.
She does get
Everybody's
David, she
cranky.
gets extremely cranky.
They just redid this.
Yeah, it's what-
20.
It broke, we have pictures, or I had pictures of, it, when it was done, and then the next winter, you could see where it was breaking apart.
You just need that, it's not the proper term, but you have to chink it all. You chink all those rocks, you tighten them up. We need we need the Barbudos from Hingham to come down and get this thing all squared away.
All right, Kevin, any fisherman, is there a fisherman's update?
We took a lot of, Steve did, I wasn't the other day they did it, but they took some trash, they did a bunch of trash up here, a lot of stuff we continue to bring in. I think Frank said it was, Frank Marachi said it was 2,000 pounds of debris brought in. So that's something we're continuing to do. A lot of plastic, a lot of old gear. Steve's been doing a great job with the, Pat, right, Pat Kelly? Did he come down? I wasn't the other day.
For which,
It's kind of, just, it was dumped.
oh yeah, Patrick Kelly came
Patrick
down,
Kelly,
yeah.
so.
That was a two loader day. I helped load it, yeah, it was a two load, that was
It's
a.
good because I really like to be able to tell guys it's okay to continue to bring stuff in. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to stop. It's good. And it works well. We had a busy month with the scholars came in. We worked well with that.
They sold out.
Sold out, pulled from out of town doing that Northern Government scholarship season. So that worked out well this
We
year.
have boats as far as New Jersey.
Yeah, we had boats as far as New Jersey.
Elephant truck must be drying up.
So yeah, they are.
Yeah, it's low.
And yeah,
The
everyone's,
price was.
everyone's gearing up. It seems like all the lobsters are getting the gear on the water. I think they're gonna open up the state waters tomorrow or the next day.
Tomorrow, 14th was even more, yeah.
Everything's.
I saw a couple of
busy.
whales down there, so.
Speed restrictions up.
We're like, get ready for shark sightings, because we got like 15 basking sharks in the bay, so.
Got a picture from a friend of mine. Down in Long Island Sound, a big great wave heading north.
Dinner bell, ding, ding, ding.
Big dinner bell.
Okay, petition, lobsterman's update, Dave, anything? It's not to discriminate, usually it's Dave Haley.
Well, it's just federal open on the 1st, nothing really going on with this, state opens up again tomorrow, they always say by the 15th or sooner if they can, so it's kind of confusing. Because the whales are still here and they open the federal water, but I've never been a proponent of that because I don't want my buoy on a whale, right? Whether they tell me it's open or not, I just don't. And so that'll be good, things will start heating up and get a little bump. Price dropped, it was $15.50 a pound, and they opened it up and it went to $7. That was boat price, so, and the Canadians are tying their boats up because they're not fishing for $4 a pound. There's a lot of turmoil right now in the market, so it's really important. MLA had a big giveaway day. I say giveaway day. They had breakaway ropes. They had marked ropes. They had. We were able to get lobster bands that go in the lobsters. That say product of Massachusetts. So it's kind of a neat marketing thing. If you're buying lobster, you'll know that you're buying it. Maybe not from Scituate, but you're buying it from Massachusetts, and that's a you know, for people that are, you know, want to support the local thing, it's a pretty good deal. I'm gonna put some stuff out on Facebook on it, just so people will know, the customers that I have anyways will know what's going on.
Good idea.
Yeah, no, it's just, and it's, you know, it's probably the only product we buy that we actually make money on. And when you get it for free and you make money on it, it's even better, right? It's 27 pounds a case for beans or something.
I wish we could do it with fish.
I know, yeah, if you make more money on rubber bands than you can on fish, you know you're in trouble.
They can say fishing.
Yeah, nothing else that I can think of is just, it'll be down and dirty, let it rip.
Cool.
Looking forward to it. I've been on land all winter, it's not good.
Participants Q&A. I don't think we have any participants. I think everybody's.
Everybody had Q&A with the participants already.
Anybody online, Kelly or David?
No.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, I don't think we
Second.
can't vote, so just we're adjourned.
All right.
Well done.
Bye.